there are sites that are current and there are sites that are going to become a problem in the next 10 years. So you've got everything in the Altona petrochemical complex, you've got Coode Island, you've got a number of transport depots that are smaller depots around the place. You've got a number of contaminated sites that used to be military or munitions factory, and there are several of those within the city of Maribyrnong. So there are large numbers of sites, and you've got to actually presume in the west that any vacant industrial land is probably contaminated with something. It's a very hard issue to deal with because nobody's ever really come up with the exact technology to make sure that these sites are cleaned and done well and maintained. I have to say that it was the best thing that I'd ever read because it actually vindicated everything I and all of the community groups have been saying for a 20-year period about how the EPA operates, and the fact that they weren't taking local residents seriously, they weren't managing the waste properly, and they did actually seem to have this contemptuous disregard for the community. So that Auditor's General report really said, get your act together. Certainly there has been a change in the leadership at the EPA. I think that there is some hope that the culture of the EPA will be changed, but I'm not holding my breath at this stage. I want to see the actions before I can really say things have changed. And the obvious pivotal one for them is the Tullamarine toxic dump. That until they actually get that right, until they actually start managing it properly, until they actually convince the local residents that they're managing it properly, then I'll decide whether they've moved in the right direction. The way it affects it is that you often will get a very strange cancer pattern. There's a lot of local evidence, people talk to each other, there are very high rates of cancer, but proving it is very difficult, so that you need a properly coordinated study to see whether what the residents believe has happened has actually happened. The fact that it would seem that the EPA has not managed, not controlled what went into that site, and certainly have not controlled or managed what was coming off the site in terms of leachate, etc. So, but I think their most important thing is to convince the community that they're actually on side rather than their opposition. Very slowly, and we will have to see as to how well the EPA manages that. And as I said, it's not going to be obvious until Tullamarine is completely cleaned up to the satisfaction of the local community. I think a lot of it has got to do with where these sites are. They tend to be in predominantly safe Labor seats, and so the Labor Party, when in government, hasn't had all that much regard for these electorates. So they think that, just carry it on. And also that all governments will support industry before they'll support the community. And that's been a major problem. And I think within the culture of the EPA, they have been very pro-business and have not considered the health and safety of local residents at all. I think it's a bit like me, it's a wait and see. It's people feel so badly dealt with over a very long period from the EPA that there is no trust at this stage, and that trust is going to have to be earned from the EPA. It's by being efficient, it's by acknowledging residents' concerns, it's by, when you issue a permit, you actually explain to local community what this is about, and you don't just do what the industry wants. I have feedback, both positive and negative, from community members about how they felt. some people felt it was really good that they were at least doing it, and others felt that, all right, it might be a good idea, but until we see action on the ground, that's going to be the proof. They do have the power to enforce clean-up notices. They very rarely do it. There has been some positive steps under the new CEO, especially to mobile in Altona, that they've actually had restrictions placed on their licence, that they're no longer allowed to self-monitor. So there have been a few moves, but again, we're still waiting to see much bigger enforcement practices. Strengthening the EPA, giving them much more certain directive legislation, giving them more power, and also increasing the fines so that it is significant when a company is fined rather than 80 or 100,000. For these really big multinational petrochemical companies, it's petty cash. It's of no significance to them, but they continue to put people's lives at risk. No, not up until this stage, and hopefully we're going to see a change, but definitely I don't think the EPA has had any real regard for the community, and that's been a major problem.